Totals for week 8. Total expenses were $4,251 at $1.19 per mile. Total revenue was $5,861 at $1.64 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $1,610 at 45 cents per mile. Welcome back to Trucking the Seven Seas. This is episode number 88, and in this episode, we're going to go over week 8 of running my own authority. For this week, we do a couple coast-to-coast runs, and that's pretty much it. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I started this channel in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. We started as a company driver, working for night transportation, moved on to a lease operator, working for night transportation, then an owner-operator, working for Landstar, and now we are an owner-operator running our own authority. I show all the loads I take, what the revenue is, what the expenses are, and what my net cash flow is, and I compile all this information that I put into a spreadsheet that I share with you at the end of every video. So if this is a topic that interests you, follow the channel. But last episode, we left off in Lewisville, Texas. So we dropped a load in Lewisville, Texas, and then it was Thursday, and I was looking to find a load that got me through the weekend. So basically, had to go either far west or far east. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So I'll put it where the light is. This load going from Irvine, Texas to Reno, Nevada. So that's a decent load. It got me through the weekend. Reno is an okay market. It's not the best, but you can get out of there for a decent rate, I thought. So I booked that one. If I couldn't get out of Reno, my plan was just to go ahead and deadhead into California if I needed to Sacramento, because that's a slightly better market. So that was my plan here. This one picked up on Thursday and then dropped Monday, so I was able to get a reset in, and that worked out pretty well. I just needed a long load to get me through the weekend. I did think maybe if I grabbed something shorter out of Lewisville, so I went from like Lewisville to Oklahoma City or something like that, and then grabbed something on Friday, I could have taken like a 1,000-mile load to the Midwest, but I was like, it's whatever. This one was fine enough. So I went ahead and booked this load, and now we're headed to Reno, Nevada. Let's go. All right, so we got to Reno and reset on Sunday and then delivered it Monday. Got to the receiver and got there. And long story short, it took them about 7 hours to unload me. So that was a bit of a problem. So I got there at like, I think it was like 8 or 9 or something like that in the morning. Was expecting, okay, 2 or 3 hours of unload, whatever. And then you'd find another load. So I ended up sitting in the receiver's lot there. I was actually back doing the door for most of the time. And booked another load going to, I think it was Indiana. It was like, it was near Gary, Indiana. Is where that's where it was. But unfortunately, due to the very long unload time, I had to cancel on them, or they canceled on me. So I was telling them, hey, like, I was very communicated. These guys were taking forever to unload me. He was very understanding. There wasn't like a huge fuss over it. It was about 3 o'clock by the time he canceled on me, basically. So I booked the load, right, at like, it was like 11 o'clock or noon or something like that. I'm like, all right, sure, they won't take too much longer. They did. Basically booked the load around noon, and then about 3 o'clock, he just said he found someone else to take it, and I was like, yeah, I totally understand. So first time I had to cancel a load since running my own authority. I believe it was TQL was this broker. So I've been, I've hauled quite a few loads for them at this point. So I think they probably marked me for, having to do that. I'm not sure, 100% sure. I don't know what my record says on them, but I had to do that, but not a huge deal. It does happen. And in this case, there was nothing I could do. And the guy was super understanding, and he ended up finding somebody else to find that load. But that kind of sucked because not only did I have to cancel that load, which was a decent load going to Indiana, I also just lost an entire day. So that sucked. Now I did get basically a day of layover. So $250 layover were attached. For me, so I got that, but I would have much preferred to grab a load and get moving, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So huge delay, 7 hours, did get layover, but then we lost a day, basically, is what happened here. So okay, woke up the next day trying to get back east to the Midwest or something like that, so Illinois or Chicago, that area preferably. So I was looking around, and I did end up finding this load right over here. So this one's going from Fallon, Nevada to Naperville, Illinois. So it's a Tuesday. Fallon, Nevada is about 50 miles away, 60 miles away from Reno, so it was a fine load. And then Naperville, Illinois is Chicago, so that's a very good market. So I didn't have too many issues with this one. As discussed, you guys are totally right, and I need to focus more on just revenue rather than rate per mile. So this week, I pretty much ignored rate per mile, and I was just going for revenue. So this one, 1,800 miles, that's about 3 days of driving. 3 days of driving, $2,800. That's about $1,000 per day, a little more or a little less, 900 specifically. But I thought this was okay anyway, so I'm really just trying to focus on revenue rather than rate per mile. Obviously, if the rate per mile is good as well, then that's good. But this is what I ended up booking. Nice long load, picks up Tuesday, delivers Friday morning. So that's what we're doing. And now we're going to Naperville, Illinois. Let's go. Okay, so we dropped that load in Naperville, Illinois, which is Chicago. So I was in Chicago. We ended up getting there about 9 a.m. and I was unloaded by about 11 o'clock or noon or something like that. So I was like, all right, Friday, let's find another weekend load, hopefully a long one, maybe to Texas or something like that, preferably. And let's get moving, right? So I was looking around, looking. There were some loads that were posting up there in the Chicago area. They were okay, but the problem is I kept making these offers, right? So I'd like throw an offer out there, and you just sort of type it in, like you go on TQL and CH Robinson, you just sort of like you put out a quote like, hey, I'll do this one for 1,500 or 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever the appropriate amount would be. So I was doing that all over the place, and normally when I do that, somebody usually calls me back and, like, you know, we haggle a little bit, and then we come up with a price, and then, you know, the load's booked. So I think I put out probably 10 or 20 offers out there, and nobody, I didn't get anything back. So I'm like, okay, it's kind of weird. So I started to kind of notice, like, these loads that were going out, like they would be posted for like 5 minutes and then it'd be gone. And I started to realize that people were just booking loads for the weekend at any price. So I was kind of being stubborn, and I didn't want to do that because I just didn't want to book like a really trash load for like $1.40 a mile or something like terrible like that. So I was waiting. And there was also another thing in play here, which is to get that Naperville, Illinois load there, basically the way the times worked out is I had to start getting up super early in the morning since picking it up. So I picked it up in Fallon, Nevada, and I basically was getting up at like midnight every night just because it was kind of a tight load, you know? So I was getting up at midnight every night. And long story short, I was pretty exhausted by the time I got to Illinois. Basically I was exhausted. I was getting, you know, enough sleep, but oftentimes I was like kind of laying in bed because I wasn't used to getting up so early. So I wasn't getting enough sleep. So I was looking at this and I was just sort of going, okay, I can book a trash load this weekend and just book a trash load to carry me through the weekend and make whatever. Or I could just try to take a day off here and maybe try to book something on Saturday and then do it that way and get a good night's rest. And I was like, all right, I did one of those things where, you know how when you take a nap and you don't set an alarm and you just wake up like 14 hours later? That's actually what ended up happening here. So it was like 2 o'clock. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna rest my eyes for like 30 minutes or an hour and see what else pops up in the load board. Maybe I can find an emergency load. That was actually my plan. So I think I went to bed at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I woke up at 4 a.m. the next day. So I'm like, okay, there goes that plan. So yeah, I was just exhausted. Not a very good reason not to book a load, but I was completely exhausted. That's all there was to it. And so I just parked it. I'm at a truck stop, and I ended up not booking a load on Friday. So it's currently Saturday as I'm filming this, and then, you know, I was trying to find a load on Saturday. Now I have to find a load on Saturday, basically. So that's where we are right now. So I'm still in Naperville, Illinois, kind of trying to find a load as I'm booking this, but I'm starting to realize I might just end up taking the entire weekend off. So that's what happened with that Naperville load. Got there, the loads were just trash. Everybody was booking everything super fast, and I was just like, I don't really want to book this. And I was super tired, so I ended up sleeping for 14 hours. So yeah, great decision making on my part. But that's what ended up happening. So the Naperville, Illinois is going to be the last load on this paycheck. I still don't have a load, and I might end up sitting for 2 days straight here this weekend. Hold on, got a truck going by. Already passed. So yeah, that's what happened there. Got to Naperville, didn't find a load, took a nap, and woke up 14 hours later. That's all there is to it. So that's what it is. I might end up taking 2 days off, and I'm okay with it actually, because I could use a couple of days off. It's a weekend anyway, so it is what it is. But because of that, the Naperville, Illinois load is going to be last load on the paycheck. So we're going to go ahead and get into the spreadsheet right now. All right, so as discussed, we're going to go over week 8 of running my own authority. So let's do it. For week 8, we did 2 loads. In those 2 loads, we got 3,582 miles. Paid a total of $5,861 at $1.64 per mile. Fuel expenses fueled up 2 times. In those 2 times, we paid $1,002 at 28 cents per mile. Maintenance expenses, we did have 1 maintenance expense. We had a trailer tire blowout, and that cost us $388 to repair at 11 cents per mile. Other expenses, tolls, $149 for a total of 4 cents per mile. Fixed costs, we had 3 fixed costs come in. So our insurance payment came in at $2,023. Trailer payment came in at $687. Our clean truck check for the California carb control came in at $32 for a total of $2,710 at 76 cents per mile. Totals for week 8. Total expenses were $4,251 at $1.19 per mile. Total revenue was $5,861 at $1.64 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $1,610 at 45 cents per mile. All right, so caveats for week 8. There are quite a few. So week 8, we did have about a day or so that we did last week that ended up carrying over to this week's paycheck. So this Irvine, Texas load, I picked it up Thursday, ran it Friday, and then dropped it Monday basically. And my week ends on Friday. So therefore, this Irvine, Texas load to Reno, Nevada has about 1 day of running that I did last week, but it got carried over to this week. So there's about an extra 600 or so miles, maybe about $1,000 extra on this week's paycheck. That should have been on last week's paycheck, so it should have been up there. So there was that. Also had the day of layover here. For some reason, they wrote it up as $251.90, which I'm confused as to why they did that. But when I got my settlement thing, my paperwork, it said $251, so they wrote it up as that. So it's like, okay then, whatever. So there's that. Apart from that, pretty standard. Just grabbed a couple long loads. That's what I ended up doing. The run-in from the Midwest to Texas and back, yeah, I'm still trying to do that, but it's just not working out. I think that first week I did it was kind of a fluke, so which is kind of unfortunate. I did like that run. I'll still try to do it, but so far I just haven't been able to successfully carry out that plan very often. So there's that. Deadhead was very good, I was noticing. So, long loads with very little deadhead, that's always a good thing. So my deadhead was very good this week. Rate per mile, again, I was just sort of ignoring it. You guys are completely right. I just need to focus on revenue. So that's what I did. So I was trying to get about $1,000 of revenue per day. This is a little less than 1,000. It's probably more like 900 and some change per day. So there's that. But other than that, yeah, pretty good on the revenue side, although it is a little bit juiced from last week. But all in all, not too bad. This did cost me a day, so not the best, but there you go. Anyways, there's week 8 as far as revenue goes. All right, moving on to fuel expenses. Fuel expenses were pretty standard here. I must have started the week full, is my guess here. So whenever you see a week where my fuel should be about 36 cents per mile is what I'm gathering. So this one's 28 cents, but if you scroll up to the previous week, I had kind of a high fuel bill right there. So that's last week's. So I'm guessing I started this week with a full tank, which is why my fuel bill is a little low. I did also file my IFTA for the month, so it's first time filing it. Yeah, first time filing it, kind of a pain, especially the first time, but there it is, $139 for my IFTA. That's probably largely because I'm trying to fuel up in like low fuel price states. Learning a lot about the IFTA, just doing it. But yeah, basically I ended up fueling a lot in low tax states, and that's just, I got pegged with an IFTA bill. So $139, it's whatever. But it came in this week, and I've decided I'm going to put the IFTA payment, the IFTA tax, in the fuel expense, because the IFTA tax is what I should have paid in fuel tax that I didn't pay the previous 3 months or whatever. So I'm going to start putting it into my fuel expense, which is what I did here because I think that's appropriate. But anyways, there's that. Pretty standard. $1,000, 28 cents per mile. There you go. Okay, maintenance. I did have a trailer tire blow on me. So got this trailer. Tires look fine. And I think for the most part, I hope they're fine. But it is starting to look like, I think this trailer may have actually sat and then the tires may have, kind of got a little low, and that caused some of the more vulnerable tires to basically be a little bit compromised, is what I'm guessing, because I've blown 2 tires in like the last 3 or 4 weeks, which is not normal, and it's not that hot outside either, so that's not the problem. So there is that. So I threw new virgin tire on it. I am kind of tempted to maybe just have all of the tires replaced at this point, because if I blow a tire this often, it can kind of be a problem. So I don't know. I may do that, but I ended up blowing a tire, and I had to get it replaced. Now there's a virgin on there, and I'm starting to question the tires at this point. They look fine when I look at them, like the tread is fine, but I don't know. I think that's what happened. The trailer was sitting for like a month or more, and the tires got a little depressed, and then because the tires got a little depressed, they sagged. You're not supposed to leave them sit like that when they're a little bit low inflated. So I think that may have happened here. Time will tell. I guess if I blow another one, I'm just going to be like, all right, replace them all, because there's obviously a problem here. Because, yeah, again, the tread is fine. I just think they may have been compromised. So I'm not sure, though. We'll see if I blow another one. But I blew one, got it replaced in like a half hour at a Pilot, and it didn't cost me too much time, but it did cost me $388. So there's that. All right, and then other expenses. So tolls. When I was running through Dallas, actually, when I did run the Midwest to Texas and back, when I was running through Dallas, I wasn't shy about using those the toll roads, because the traffic was pretty bad. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna run them, and that's what I did. I also ran through Oklahoma a little bit on the 44, so I had that toll as well. But yeah, I wasn't being shy about using those tolls. It definitely saved me some time, and yeah. But there's a cost to that, obviously, which came into this week, so about $149, because that was mostly the Dallas George Bush Turnpike toll, is what I'm guessing. I gotta look at it, but that's definitely what it was, the Dallas tolls. So there's that, $149, 4 cents per mile. There's other expenses. All right, and then for the big boy expenses, these fixed costs. So I did have my insurance payment come in, so that's $2,000. So I'm paying $2,000 a month in insurance. That hurts. Pretty standard. I mean, for those of you who are looking to get your own authority, my record is completely clean. I have no tickets. I have a CSA score of like 2 or something like that. There's nothing on my record that would give me a higher insurance rate. I'm actually a very, very clean driver. I'm 33 years old, so there's that. There's the insurance rates. Now, I know in the last year or so, they've gone way up. So if you got your insurance like a year or 2 ago, lucky you, and you need to hold on to that insurance, because they went way up in the last couple of years. I think it's partly inflation is part of the problem. But insurance, that's my insurance rate, $2,000 a month. My truck is about a $40,000. I wrote my truck up as a $40,000 asset, so it's not like I have an insanely expensive truck either. It's just that the insurance rates are very high for a new carrier. So mine's $2,000 a month, and there you go, $2,000. Ouchie, that's my insurance. All right, and then my trailer payment, $687 a month. That's my trailer payment. Yeah, trailer payment. Oh, I do have a former Landstar trailer, if you guys were wondering. So I went down to a place that was selling basically decommissioned Landstar trailers. It's a pretty good trailer. Like, it has auto inflate system and everything. I mean, the trailer is fine. It is older than 10 years, so some shippers don't like that. But other than that, yeah, I got a former Landstar trailer. It does have like the decals are still kind of there. You know how it is when you remove a decal and the outline is still there. So it's still got all that on it, but my trailer payment is $687 a month. It's a 2-year payments plan, and you can kind of do the math on what I paid for it. But yeah, there's that trailer payment. Okay, and then the CTC California is the Clean Truck Check California carb emission things that they're making everybody do now. I had to basically re-register my truck so I can run there legally. So that's what I did. And it's for like people, they're rolling out this whole thing where like if you bypassed your DEF emission system, you have to get it tested regularly. So this is kind of the initial rollout of that. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out myself. But that's what that is. It's just a quick, they make you register your vehicle like every 3 months or something like that. So that's what that's about. And that's so I can run in California legally, but that's what that is. Okay, yeah, and then that total $2,710 at 76 cents per mile. So that's a lot. That's quite a bit. Obviously, when the insurance payment comes in like that and the trailer payment comes in, it's $2,700 worth of expenses. So some of you guys have been asking me to break stuff like this down on a weekly basis and show it on a weekly basis instead of just when it comes in. So instead of $2,000 one-time payment, do like $500 every week. And I'm not going to do that because I like to show exactly what each week looks like on a week-by-week basis. So I didn't pay $500 per week for my insurance payment. I paid $2,000 a month, and it just comes in one time. So that's what I like to show, and that's what I think is better because it shows cash flow. Every now and then you're going to have $2,700 of fixed costs come in on a single week, and you're not going to have a very good week, which is what happened this time. So some of you guys were asking about that, and the answer is no. I'm not going to put it that way. Now, if you were out there and you wanted to personally sock away $500 per week for your insurance payment, that's a fine way of looking at it. I'm just not doing it that way because I'm just showing pure cash flow on a weekly basis. And whether there's $3,000 to come out in a week or $0 to come out in a week, that's what I'm going to show. So there's that. Okay, and then looking at the overalls, I mean, it wasn't a bad week in terms of revenue or anything like that. And overall, I mean, it wasn't a terrible week. I just had a bunch of expenses come out. This right here, that hurts, right? So that was the main thing going on there. It was it was just a so-so week, right? There is about $600 worth of running that I did last week that are on this week's paycheck, but there's also a day lost due to the Reno delay. So there's that. All in all, it could be a lot worse. I mean, if the expenses weren't so high, then I would have a pretty good week. But we had very high expenses, okay-ish revenue, which resulted in a not great week. So there's that, $1,600 this week. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go over the totals. So total expenses have been $35,820 at $1.72 per mile, and we have run 20,000 miles so far. Total revenue is $37,516 at $1.80 per mile, which brings our total profit loss to $1,696 at 8 cents per mile, and all of these loads are dry van. Okay, so there are the totals since starting my own authority. Now, the big question you're probably wondering if you're new to this channel is, why are these expenses so high? Well, the expenses are so high because if you go ahead and you scroll to the top of this, you will see my startup costs. So initial startup costs are all laid out right here. I did make a video on that, so you can go ahead and watch that video if you want a total breakdown of all of this. But long story short, I ended up spending $18,000 to get my authority active. This was mostly due to insurance payments, DMV registration, and trailer down payment. So all in all, I racked up $18,000 worth of expenses. So there's 18 grand right there. So what we're going to do for theoretical purposes to see what a typical week would look like, I'm going to go ahead and delete these startup costs right there. So we're just going to delete them, and then we're going to scroll back down to total profit loss. So scroll back down, and there we are. Okay, so these are my expenses and revenue and profit loss since starting my own authority. So without the startup costs, my expenses have been $17,562 at 84 cents per mile. Total revenue was $37,516 at $1.80 per mile. And my total profit loss has been $19,954 at 96 cents per mile. All right, yeah, so there's totals without the startup costs. 96 cents per mile, not great, right? Especially as an owner-operator running with my own authority and my truck is paid off. It's not very good. It is what it is, though. This is the market. Now, currently, I only have access to two carriers. That's TQL and CH Robinson. I'm almost at the 90-day mark, so next week I should be able to get access to a few more of them. So I got that going on. And also, this is mostly running March and April. So those months aren't very good. Well, February, March, and April, actually. So those are pretty slow months for dry van. So there's that going on. But most importantly, and probably overwhelming of the overwhelming point of all this, this is a terrible market. So it's absolutely abysmal market right now. It seems to be getting not great. I mean, I was unable to find a load in Chicago on a Friday. So that's raising some alarm bells right now. It looks like the tariffs maybe have something to do with it. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a one-off fluke. We'll see. I'm not going to get too political with the tariffs or anything like that, but they're probably going to negatively affect things in the short term here. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure, but that's what's going on there. 96 cents per mile, terrible market. And that is how we are rolling without the startup costs. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and scroll down to averages and other information. So down here is just all of my averages and a bunch of other useful information that I put in. This, again, does not include the startup costs. The startup costs are not there because if I put the startup costs in there, the entire spreadsheet gets skewed and all of these numbers become meaningless. So we're just going to look at it on like a week-by-week basis without the startup costs, and that's what these averages are going to go over. All right, so let's do it. All right, averages and other information. Average weekly paycheck without the startup costs is $2,494, averaging 2,608 miles. Total fuel costs have been $7,566 at 36 cents per mile. We fueled up 2,314 gallons, and our average fuel price is $3.27. Total maintenance costs have been $2,636 at 13 cents per mile. If we kept this up for a 52-week period, we'd make $129,000 and drive a total of 135,000 miles. Total revenue has been $37,516. We are averaging $4,689 per week in revenue. Total deadhead has been 1,666 miles at 7.99% of total mileage. We've been employed 56 days or 8 weeks, taking 4 days off, 52 days on duty, 22 total loads. Average load length is 948 miles. And if we had a $500 truck payment without startup costs, we would have made $15,954. All right, looking at these averages, we're doing okay on a week-by-week basis. If I'm being honest, I think this is decent. So 2,600 miles average per week is fine. That time, these mileage, that mileage there does include time off and layover and things like that. So I think that's okay. You know, if you were to back out the layover and everything, you'd be looking right at about 3,000 miles per week, which is fine. Fuel costs are looking pretty good, 36 cents per mile. I did delete my miles per gallon calculation that I had here because I just started to realize it was totally wrong. So if you watched last week's episode, you would know that was just wrong because I was failing to add in my out of route. So I just went ahead and deleted it. I think it got ridiculously high, like 9 miles per gallon after this. So I deleted it. So that's not there. And then other than that, 2,300 gallons, $3.27 per gallon, which is a little high. I don't know. I thought I was doing better than that, but that's what it came out as. So okay, so gotta look at that. Maybe I'm not fueling up at the right places. So I think that's a little high. I think I could do better there. But yeah, maintenance costs 13 cents per mile. That's probably right where it's going to fall in, assuming my truck doesn't blow up. Most maintenance is between 10 and 15 cents per mile per truck. Mine's 13, so it's pretty good. Okay, so this here, $129,000 if I kept up for a whole year. If you minus the startup costs, it would calculate out to about $110,000 for a year, which is not very good, all things considered. Owner-operator with a paid-off truck only making $110,000 a year. That's not all that good. I mean, it's not bad, right? I mean, it's just like if you have your own truck and it's paid off and you're running your own authority, you should probably be doing better than $110,000 a year. So there's that, but that's where we're at. Again, terrible market. Hopefully things get better, but I've been saying that for like a year and a half now, and things haven't gotten better. So yeah, hopefully they do. I know. All right, if I kept it up for a year, also I drive 135,000 miles, which is quite good. I think that's pretty decent. Maybe not totally sustainable either. I'm taking a day, probably looks like I'm gonna take an extra day off right now. So got that going on. Haven't taken many days off at all. So that's pretty high right now. I think that's probably gonna drop down to about 120 by the time the year ends, which is still okay. 120,000 per year, or miles per year is totally fine. And that's probably what we're gonna end up doing. Okay, other things, revenue per week, that's ticking up, $4,600, not quite where I want it to be. That does still include layover and time off, so I want to get that up to 5 or closer to 6,000. But we're taking it up. I think it's gone up about $400 in the last couple of weeks per average per week, so that's okay. Deadhead back in the 8% range. That's where I want it. I want to shoot between 5 and 8%. We're at basically 8% right now, so that's okay. Our average load length is just shy of 1,000 miles, and I'm going to try to keep it that way. So yeah, try to keep it that way. Either run in Texas to the Midwest, or Texas to West Coast, or whatever, or Midwest to the West Coast, somewhere along that range. But keeping it at about 1,000 miles is pretty decent, and that's what we're shooting for. And then this cell right here, it calculates what I would have made if I had a $500 truck payment. So I would have made $15,000 with a $500 truck payment, or say $16,000. And if you scroll up, 20,000 miles divided by $16,000 is about 80 cents per mile if I had a truck payment. So I'd be making about 80 cents per mile if I had a truck payment. Actually, you know what? Let's just do it. Yeah, there it is. So I've just put it in there real quick. 76 cents per mile if I had a $500 per week truck payment. That would be what my net cash flow would be. So You can decide whether that's good or bad. I'm just putting it in there. So there it is. Okay, yeah, guys, so those were the numbers without the startup costs. However, the startup costs absolutely count. So I'm going to scroll back to the top here, and we're going to put the startup costs back in there. So the startup costs are back. Scrolling back down to the bottom, and now those are our numbers without the startup costs. We're in the green, so that's good. It took us about a month and a half to climb out of that. Not doing great so far, and it looks like between Landstar, where I was previously working, and running my own authority, it's going to be very close by the end of the year. I think both Landstar and running my own authority are going to be about equal in profitability. However, I think over the long term, running my own authority will be better, whereas the short term, running Landstar would probably be better. So I mentioned this last week. I think on a yearly basis, if you analyze it year by year, just 1 year to 1 year, Landstar is going to be probably the better option because there's way less headache. However, if you want to run longer, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10, 20 years, I think running your own authority is definitely going to be better off. So we'll see how it goes though. But as of week 8, those are my numbers. There you go. But that will pretty much do it for this episode. If you need a factoring company, you might try OTR Factoring. I'm currently using them, and they're pretty solid. They also have a fuel card. So if you get their fuel card and you factor with them, and you fuel up using their fuel card, you also get a discount on their factoring fees. So that's nice. They usually get paid within 24 to 48 hours. So they're pretty solid. And you might check them out. There is a link in the About section down below. So if you want to use them, please try to use that link. It does help me out a ton when you do so. And if you are interested in this spreadsheet or any of the other spreadsheets I've done in the past, they are also available in the About section down below. After you find them, just hit File, Download. Then you can download them to a Microsoft Excel sheet. And after you download them to an Excel sheet, you are free to use them however you please. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.